Just 9 days passed between the non-indictment in Ferguson to another grand jury glossing over in the chokehold death of Eric Garner. The close timing of these two events is awful, depending on who you ask. Pro-law enforcement would tell you it's created a horrible environment to be a cop, and it is open season on police. Those looking to change the way cops interact with their communities have seized on the confluence as though it's a blessing and a sign. Twice as much passion will call the people to the streets so those in power can no longer ignore the need for justice. Emotionalists will never be able to separate these two cases, and to them they are black and white. It's all about violence and race. Rationalists, however, see the differences between them, and even for those who are disgusted by Eric Garner's treatment and death, it's a different story than Ferguson, and it goes way beyond race, and we will find the truth. This is The Independent. Hey there, I'm Kennedy. What are the racial implications of the Eric Garner case, and is there a way of talking about police brutality without inciting our differences? Our emotional beacon, Charlemagne the God, just grilled Chris Rock on his radio show about this case and race relations in general. Charlemagne has been very wonderfully outspoken, and sometimes his pointed words don't sit well with his fans and friends. That's why we love him.
The real question is, how come no white guys ever get shot?
That's the real.
Where?
Mobile, Alabama, it's a case where the black cop just didn't get indicted by the grand jury.
It's
killed the
one,
18-year-old white kid.
It's not a common thing.
In Salt Lake City, a 20-year-old kid got killed in front of 7-Eleven by a black cop. They had the body cam and everything.
Okay. It doesn't appear to be that common.
Well, I mean, by common, you mean like common, then maybe it's 60% of Americans think the grand jury had it wrong in Eric Garner's chokehold death, and a new chorus of normally disparate voices has come together to denounce this other non-indictment. Tonight, I'm joined by the edibly outrageous Reason Magazine editor-in-chief. It's Matt Welch, and together we are, just the two of us, the Independents, because Camille Foster has the night off, and that means that we have to put together an intriguing party panel. It's as intriguing as it is attractive. Look who we've got tonight. It's Hadley Heath Manning, policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, and he's here in the flesh. Charlemagne the God, radio and TV personality and legend.
Legend,
yeah,
Jesus
that's right.
Christ.
I know.
You're overselling this
well,
thing a lot,
that's because
Kennedy.
I'm about to say really mean things to you, and I want to butter you up before I take it down, like a butterball turkey.
We're friends, though, so we can talk to each other later.
No, we're totally friends,
yes.
And you've had some interesting thoughts on the Eric Garner case. You say this case is not about race. What is it about?
I'm not going to say it's not about race, but I think the issue is bigger than race, because at the end of the day, this is a human rights issue. And what I saw was a person whose constitutional rights were violated, period. And, you know, I think if we continue to look at this as just a race issue, to be honest with you, I don't think nothing's going to get done. I think it's better when everybody's out there galvanizing. You know, you see these protests, they're multicultural, and people are realizing, like, look, this is majority happening to a lot of African Americans, but it's also happening to Latinos, it's happening to white people. And like Martin Luther King Jr. said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I think that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing an injustice to a lot of Americans, period.
And here we're looking at a live shot in Brooklyn. People still out protesting. People are galvanized across the country, and it's a very different kind of protest than we've seen in Ferguson. Why do you think that is?
What do you mean when you say it's a very different type of protest? Oh, you mean like as far as riots and stuff?
Yeah, riots, incendiary. I mean, you're not seeing literal flame out and destruction.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think, I don't know. I don't know why that is, actually. I think in Ferguson, I think it was the way they iced the kicker, basically. That's what they tried to do. Like, we knew that they weren't going to indict Darren Wilson from the start, so why prolong the situation? And the way they set it up, they announced it at 9 o'clock at night, or whatever time it was at night. Like, it was almost like they were trying to incite a riot. I mean,
inviting people.
Yeah, and for months prior, they were bringing in military-style weapons and bringing in more, you know, police presence. So it was like they kind of knew something bad was going to happen in that situation.
Yeah. The Garner protests keep on going, and I think that says a lot about the difference in this case. Why do you think people are still out there protesting, and what are they asking for?
Well, it's like you said at the top of the show, Kennedy, emotionalists may not be able to separate these two events. But they are separate events, and the facts of each event is different.
Yeah.
There was a videotape of what happened to Eric Garner. There's no videotape of what happened to Michael Brown, at least during the last moments of his life.
Yeah.
And those facts matter to people. They matter to the people protesting. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, that question, what are they asking for, is for protesters to answer.
What do you think?
Everyone went so quickly to the Al Sharpton, Rudy Giuliani fight in Ferguson. I mean, it was not just a racial thing, it was an over-racial thing, that now you see a lot of people responding to the Garner reaction by saying, oh, isn't it weird that even George W. Bush thinks that this was a mistake? Even National Review.
Even Rush Limbaugh, even Bill O'Reilly.
But there should be no even. This is actually papering over the fact there isn't actually a big cultural war. There's a cultural coming together about police abuses and the problems baked in the incentives of the criminal justice system right now.
But there are a lot of people who are conservative who tend to be law enforcement apologists, and I think that's why people are surprised that more conservative.
Less and less. There's a criminal justice reform movement in this country right now that is being led on the right side, in the Christian right and also the libertarian right, and joining a lot of people on the progressive left right now. We've seen a bunch of bills bubble up. There's been a lot of activity the last 10 years. I was at a Society for Professional Investigators conference. Former Attorney General Michael Mukasey, Kenneth Thompson, the new DA from Brooklyn, couldn't be more opposed, right and left, these guys. They both talked about the urgent need for criminal justice reform now. Law enforcement right now is conceptualizing how to fix these broken systems that we have.
I agree, because I mean, when I look at certain stats, and I'm just being hypothetical because I'm not Bill O'Reilly, so I don't know the actual analytics, but if I see 200...
I like your internal analytics. It's not for me, Charlemagne. You got a great gut.
If I see 200, unarmed black men were killed by police officers, and I see a number that says 100 unarmed white men were killed by police officers, all I see is 300 unarmed men were killed by police officers. And that is a problem, period.
And I think that's what people are ultimately getting to. And that's why I don't have a problem with the protests continuing, because I think we have to ask ourselves these questions. And from the same poll of unhappy people, Bloomberg Politics, this poll shows a majority of Americans, 53%, say the interactions between white and black communities have deteriorated since the president took office. And here's President Obama talking about race.
We have made progress, and so it's important to recognize, as painful as these incidents are, and we can't equate what's happening now to what was happening 50 years ago.
Some people would like to. Bill de Blasio would like to. Charlemagne, I want to talk about this with you, though, because people, majority of people say that race relations have deteriorated. I say that's an improvement. I say when Charles Barkley can come out and say things about the black community, I say when Rudy Giuliani can talk about black-on-black crime and people can have these discussions in the open, that's a sign of racial openness, regardless of whether or not you disagree.
I mean, you got to have the conversation. I mean, President Obama, he made a good point. He said you can't equate what's going on now to what's going on 50 years ago, and he's the proof of that. You know what I'm saying? He's a black president. But I agree with you. You have to have the conversation. And one thing I think the black community is very upset about right now is the fact that when you look at what's going on with the police, the majority of it is happening to us. So I think once you have that open discussion and acknowledge, yes, the police are profiling us, the police are killing us at a tremendous rate, then we can have the overall discussion about everybody.
Yeah, there's a higher concentration of police in poor neighborhoods and black neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Which, tend to go hand in hand. And we also have to figure out why there's that relationship.
Polls like this one, I think, tend to be a snapshot or a feeling of the moment. When you do look at the undercurrent, I tend to agree with the president that the long term is an improvement. I think generation after generation in this country, race relations are getting better. I don't know if you'd agree with me, but I think, like you said, the president is proof of that. But when people turn on their television sets and they do see riots in Ferguson, and they do see protests in Staten Island, that's what they're responding to when they say race relations have gotten worse.
And when they do these polls, who's the demo that they're polling? I mean, if you're polling an older generation, they might say things are getting worse. You poll a younger generation, they'll be like, nah, we all get along.
Yeah, and you can talk about things with your friends. You can have an open discussion without worrying that you're going to offend someone or that you're part of a community. I mean, I don't feel like I'm part of a white community.
One thing that's been problematic that we've seen in the Obama era, and I don't blame Obama for this at all, is that a section of the progressive left, I think, has decided to take offense at everything, get quickly to the point where the other side is by definition evil, whether they're apologists for rape or whether they're secret racists and all this kind of stuff. So it does get to this way that it's more difficult to talk about it. How many times do we hear about Mitt Romney's binders full of women, all this kind of let's immediately polarize the situation.
I think it's called identity politics.
Identity politics I think has risen and gotten worse under Obama. I wouldn't blame Obama, but I don't think the actual human relations with people or is even recognizable from when I was a kid. And, you know, I lived in a city that had tons of racist cops, and it was a real problem. That city doesn't have the same thing anymore.
Listen, man, you go talk to these kids right now, they do not see race the same as we did growing up. I mean, you know, and I think hip-hop, you know, should get a lot of credit for that, because hip-hop is a sense of